Between 1455 and 1487, there was a civil war that plagued the land of England, historically known as the Wars of the Roses. Two royal households from the same lineage fought as bitter enemies for more than 30 years. The House of Lancaster, whose family banner sported a red rose, and the House of York, whose family banner sported a white rose, brutally battled one another for the undisputed claim to the throne. Ultimately, the House of Lancaster won the war, but then the king married Elizabeth from the House of York, thereby reuniting the two families. What a pointless battle. Too many times I've seen this same War of the Roses play out in a church worship team setting. Often there's a battle between the House of Worship Leader and the House of Audio Department for the undisputed claim to the throne. And this is a pointless battle. Let's talk about this a little bit more on today's Weekly Worship Thoughts. Worship leaders, I have important information for you, so please listen carefully. The sound man is your friend. When I travel around training worship teams, this is a phrase I have them memorize and repeat. The sound man is my friend. Go ahead, say it out loud. In fact, if there's a sound man near you, say it loud enough that they can hear you. The sound man is my friend. You are on the same team. We don't always think of the sound man or sound woman as being a part of the worship team, but they are. In fact, they are a vital part of the worship team. Like the houses of Lancaster and York, we can easily slip into a pointless power struggle. Maybe the sound man is secretly turning things down in the stage monitors so that they can provide a better front of house mix, or maybe the electric guitar player is covertly boosting the volume of his amplifier on the stage. This unhealthy and unhelpful mix battle never ends well. The sound man is your friend. You should be working together to create a stage volume and front of house volume that serves the congregation as well as the worship team. The sound man can make you or break you. As a worship leader, you could be standing in front of the congregation making the most spiritually enlightened point on this side of eternity, but if your mic is muted, no one will hear it. You could be singing notes that compel even the angels of heaven to sing along, but if your vocal is buried in the mix, or if it is way too loud, then your melodious invitation to make much of God will be missed. On the flip side, if you accidentally put your capo on the wrong fret, or if the keyboard is transposed into the wrong key, a quick-witted sound man can heroically save the day with a single fader. The reality is, the sound man has the ability to enhance the mix, fix the mix, or destroy the mix. It is far better to befriend someone with this much power than it is to merely hope he is on your side. The sound man has a thankless job. He already knows that. The congregation typically only notices the sound man when something goes terribly wrong. Ironically, in times of sonic disaster, he will most likely be blamed whether it was his fault or yours. When everything is going well, probably no one will even realize or acknowledge how much he contributed to the success of the service. The sound man could use your help. Believe it or not, your sound man likely wants to serve you well. While it is ultimately his hands on the board, he would probably respond well to hearing you express how you would like different aspects of the music to sound. If there's a specific guitar part you would like to have louder, let him know. If there's a specific effect you would like for him to use at a particular moment in the song, tell him. You can accomplish much more musically by working together than you ever could on your own. So please remember, the sound man is your friend. All right, we're gonna get super practical, and I have Nate Brown here with me. Say hi, Nate.
Hello.
Perfect. Okay, and we are going to be talking about this a little bit deeper here. Nate is the sound man for Polen Band, so he's been running sound for me for years and years and years. Nate is also a worship leader at his home church, so he's been able to understand this dynamic from both sides, as the sound man and as the worship leader. And Nate, I would just love for you to be able to talk with them and share them a little bit of your insight as a sound man and as a worship leader. Why is it so important for the worship team and for the sound man to recognize you're on the same team? These battles between one another are not fruitful. And what kind of advice could you give to everybody who happens to be watching this weekly worship thought?
My first thought would be learn to communicate really, really well with each other, especially the worship leader and the sound guy. Your worship leader obviously is trying to lead people into worship, and the sound guy is trying to serve the worship leader and give them both the best experience possible. So communicate. As a worship leader, you kind of want to communicate with your sound guy what you're trying to accomplish and make sure that he understands that. and then know kind of what you are expecting from the sound guy. Do you need him? It's probably extremely important that he is there for rehearsals, that he is there ahead of time and knows exactly what you need and what you want. There's always the opportunity that if you're not communicating, that the sound guy won't know what he needs, he'll get frustrated, he won't have his heart into it, and you want him to be a part of that team. You want him to know that he's a part of what you're accomplishing on Sunday morning, that you're leading people into worship. You want him to have a heart for it. So be very open, be very honest, and make sure that you're not letting your pride or your ego get in the way, that you're both trying to accomplish the same task.
Now, have you ever been in a situation where the sound man was not on the same team? And like, what, as a worship leader, how frustrating is it when the sound man doesn't feel like he's for you?
It is extremely frustrating, especially when you're on stage. You can't really take a break, you can't really stop and communicate. So the expectation is that he will be prepared mid-set while you're mid-song. And a lot of times when a sound guy is either disheartened or he's not into it, he's not paying attention. He's missing things, he's not paying attention to anybody on stage, he's not looking at any of the band members or anything like that to see what they're doing, and things can get missed. Things get muted and stay muted. There'll be maybe a little bit of feedback that he's missing because he's talking to somebody behind the board or whatever, when he should be paying attention. So it's important to make sure that he is always paying attention, that he always has his eyes on what's going on in the stage, and part of that is knowing that he's part of the team, part of that experience.
I think that's really important. You said make sure he always has the eyes on the stage. We think of the sound man as having the ears on the speakers, but they really have to have their eyes on the stage as well, so they can understand what's happening, and maybe the worship leader is trying to give them some cues so they understand what's happening. Now let's flip the script here a little bit. As a sound man, have you ever worked with a worship leader who did not treat you like you were on the same team, and what was that like?
So I don't know if I've ever worked with a worship leader. Most of the worship leaders I've worked with are great, but I've worked with plenty of other bands that wanted very specific things in their monitors, wanted very specific things to happen on stage that were pretty much impossible, mostly because we had very little time to set up. There were other bands that were playing, and so they were constantly trying to get turn their monitors up or get something, and it's almost impossible to make them happy. And so they get a bad experience. It makes the sound guy bitter because he can never get them what they want because there just isn't the time. It ends up everybody feels frustrated, everybody's kind of angry, everybody feels like nothing really went well.
That's not good.
Never. That never is good.
So I hope that was helpful and gives you a little bit more of a practical look of what the relationship between worship leader and sound man could and should look like. What was one interesting truth or idea that stood out to you today? And how do you think that truth or idea will help you in the future? In what ways have you seen the battle of the house of worship leader and the house of audio department take place in your context? Has the battle ever yielded positive results? In your own words, why do you think it is so important to always remember that the sound man is your friend? What are some practical ways that you can reinforce the truth that the sound man is a vital part of the worship team? Knowing that the sound man has such a thankless job, what are some practical ways that you could show your appreciation for all that they do?